I think yesterday evening we had an excellent session. Professor Magdi Matkur here chaired that, and I think that session clearly showed, clearly presented the value of new science, new technologies, new innovations, and so on. So I'm not going to go deep into that. I think countries around the world are taking positive steps to build their capacity, build their policies, build their institutions so that we can fast track the transfer of technologies so that they can reach to smallholder farmers and other consumers and other stakeholders. So I'm going to get started here. Our first speaker is from Uganda, Dr. Ruth Mababazi. She is a faculty member at Michigan State University. Ruth got her PhD degree from Australia in plant biotechnology related field, but she has more than 10 years of experience in policy, in technology transfer, commercialization. Prior to coming to Michigan State, she was with Uganda Council for Science and Technology, which is a public institution in Uganda. So Ruth, I welcome you here. By the way, we are giving 10 minutes per presentation, so my humble request for each speaker to keep it to 10 minutes. I don't have any paper like Dr. Matkur had yesterday, so, but maybe I'll try to get a glass and a spoon or ring something after 8 minutes. What we will do is we'll go through the presentations, and then we'll open up for questions. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay.
Well, thank you, Professor Maredia, for the kind introduction. Good afternoon. I'm humbled, and I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. And I'm really humbled, and I thank you for the great hospitality. This is my first time in Egypt. I've enjoyed the food. And in my presentation, I'll try to take you through Africa. Of course, 10 minutes, I can't talk about the entire Africa. It's over 56 countries, but I'll try to summarize. In my presentation, I'll give you the African context. I'll try to link Africa to the entire world. That's the global perspective. And then I'll take you through how we are trying to foster technology transfer in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, which is, well, a bit left behind. Here in sub-Saharan Africa, I exclude South Africa and the Arab states. I also take you through some examples of platforms where technology transfer is trying, to be implemented, and how we are supporting scientists in the sub-Saharan Africa. I also look at some recommendations or suggestions on how best we can improve in the area of technology transfer. Africa population was estimated at around 1.2 billion. And then we find that more than 45% of the African population is under 25 years, which is critical mass for science and technology and innovation, which is, that's what we need, as some of the speakers talked about yesterday. We find Africa is faced with global emerging challenges of climate change, raising food insecurity. This morning we had a session on food security, which covered a couple of topics, including livestock and crop, pests, a number of things. So I won't go into much detailing of this. We have political volatility, we have population explosion. Yesterday we had a speaker talk about population growth and mounting environmental pressures. All these leading to an urgent need to produce more food, fiber, and provide clean water for our population. Research in most African countries is normally conducted by public research institutions, and we find these are largely comprising of higher education institutions and statutory research institutions. These PRI, which are the public research institutions, also form the largest number of skilled personnel. And in this area, we find that most of them lack infrastructure which govern the IP system. And then you'll find that when I talk of IP system, you'll find that they have limited capacity to register, to disclose, and also to file applications. They are predominantly guided by the notion of public research or product, working for the public. And so you find most times their innovations are terminated earlier before they reach the actual, stage of commercialization. In brief, looking at the support to research and development, you'll find Sub-Saharan Africa, our gross expenditure, which is the percentage of GDP, that's gross expenditure on R&D, is less than 1%. Of course, Sub-Arab states and South Africa are doing a bit okay. They're above 1%. And then you'll find they have, on average, South Africa and Arab states have a good number of scientists. If you compare it to Sub-Saharan Africa, where you find 50 researchers per million inhabitants, it's quite low. In developed countries, of course, the story is different. That's why we have many technologies there. It's over 2% and over 3,500, researchers per million inhabitants. When we look at the process of technology transfer, it takes, three major areas where we have research, development, and production. Here we have a couple, different stakeholders involved along the chain. We have technology producers, we have technology consumers, we have product producers and product consumers. Most often you find technologies in Sub-Saharan Africa or generally in Africa, they die along between research and development. I've already mentioned, because of the notion of public good, we find ideas die early before they transit into production, technology production. Looking at, of course, this is reflected in the number of patent applications registered. These are WIPO figures. You'll find Africa, which is highlighted in red, is not doing well. It's 0.6%. This is 2014 statistics. And when you compare it to the rest of the world, you'll see that really we have a lot to do to improve on ourselves. Unless we improve on how we roll out our technologies, we have limited impact on our economic development in the area of S&T. Also, this is showing the coverage. It's also WIPO statistics on patent applications. You'll find in Africa, there is majority fall below 100, which is the pink area on your on the extreme right. And then some states like China, North America, and South Korea, which is fascinating. I'll talk about it later as an example, which we can try to follow. You find they are doing very well. They are above 100,000 applications. Right? This is 2013 statistics. I thought I should highlight this in relation to some states like Korea, South Korea, and OECD. These are developed countries. In particular, if we could borrow an example of South Korea, you'll find in 1960, South Korea was below $2,000. That's US dollar, rate, gross GDP. And then in 1980, it rose to 3,000. When you compare it to Africa, which increased by just 100. And then in 2004, it increased further, which is 12,000. And then Africa, we are still on 500, which is not a good sign. We need to embrace technology transfer to enable, economic growth. Good IP policies have to be institutionalized to provide mechanisms for stimulating socioeconomic development. This has been tried to be worked around at the regional level, where AU Agenda 2063 stipulates that through investment in health, education, and access to technology opportunities and capital, and concerted strategies to combat youth unemployment and underemployment, we shall be able to trigger development. Also under the STISA, which is Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy for Africa, they are highlighting upgrading research infrastructure, improving professional and technical competencies, and promoting entrepreneurship and innovation. All these are to help provide a platform to trigger innovation. At national level, we've found aspects of strengthening the innovation system and STI human capital. Here we are looking at R&D investments, infrastructure development in labs. We're also establishing enabling IP systems. In some institutions here we find tech transfer offices being instituted at in universities, IP policy to allow generation and licensing of IP. We've also seen in some countries like Kenya, over 35 export processing zones have been established to try to create a link between R&D and industry. And also we've seen an expansion in local private sector to introduce, this has been supported by some governments where we have tax exemptions. Also, this has been the case in Kenya. Still on fostering technology transfer at national level, we've seen an effort to trigger commercialization where public research institutions have received incentives, have introduced incentive systems. But we need to look at the approach in which they are dealing with this. It's much to do with disciplinary achievement as opposed to use and implementation of scientific knowledge. So governments needs to change approach or leadership on how they utilize the incentive system. We have also R&D investment, encouraging commercially viable products through grant schemes. At least in my country, we have this program, and we had a collaboration with South African Ministry of Science and Technology, where we provide grants for scientists for viable technologies at pilot stage. And this is the only way we can ensure long-term sustainability of research and development. Talking of agriculture, in Africa, generally agriculture, sources of agriculture innovation, we find that the fundamental life sciences discoveries, such as genomics, provide a deep understanding of technical solutions for agriculture. We need to train to build capacity in this area. Also, we find that convergence of conventional science and molecular breeding provide rapid solutions to improved plant traits and crop productivity. Currently in Africa, we have a challenge of biosafety regulations. We need to work on this. And then modern processes, process technologies to embrace nutritional value, shelf life, and other attributes. All these, we have to embrace different techniques, as some speakers have mentioned, to get a solution on how we can feed our societies. But most times you find, I have to mention this, that technologies from developed world often find no direct application in most African states or African, what the infrastructure we have can't cope. So we need, or even human resource, so we need to upscale on what we have to be able to absorb these technologies. I wanted to highlight some of technology transfer platform we have in the region, including African Agriculture Technology Foundation, which focuses on food security and climate change. Through public-private partnership, it has enabled transfer, development, and production of technologies to smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa. And they have over 30 technology licenses on drought-tolerant crops, disease and pests-resistant crops, some increased nutrient crops, a couple of them, but at least they have provided that platform. They work through, governments. They receive traits from public institutions, for instance, technologies from public institutions, germplasm from international centers. They bring, they provide that platform and they channel them through government institutions to smallholder farmers. Another platform which we can take advantage of is the different centers of excellence research at BVA Hub, brings together over 40 institutions across countries in Africa, Europe, Australia, and USA. These work closely on a particular research problem. They have capacity in the areas of genomics, bioinformatics, nutrition analysis, and mycotoxin diagnostics, molecular breeding platforms, vaccine development, plant growth facilities, to name it. We have a couple of collaborations which I've not highlighted here, like in South Africa, they have gone quite, they have advanced in the area of pharmaceutical industry. These are the areas covered by Becker. So we need also to improve on our promotion with regard to technology transfer, like these different insights where the Business Forum was interviewing the President of the US, and some awards were given on people who different entrepreneurs. We have grants offered like this one, which was given to South African doctoral candidate who invented an asthma vaccine. Sorry, it doesn't work. Yeah, in conclusion, this is my last slide, sorry. We need to establish enabling environment, foster innovation. We need also to have policies instituted on IPM, that's intellectual property management and technology transfer. We need right policies and education curriculum for capacity building. Here we need to train our scientists to do best research, right infrastructure for research. We need to promote innovation, enabling environment, formulate legislation for IP, benefit sharing systems for innovation rewards, gene banks and markets for potential technologies. We need to promote private sector through tax exemptions to S&T, product development and investments. We need to harmonize and link structural themes of economic development like knowledge generation and knowledge utilization spheres. Here I'm looking at academia, research, and industry. That's the end of my talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. That was excellent overview. There are platforms in Sub-Saharan Africa like AATF, the Africa Agriculture Technology Foundation, BeccaNet, and others. Hope you get to visit their websites and find out more. Our next presentation is from Professor Shireen Asim. Professor Asim is director of the Agriculture Genetic Engineering Research Institute, AGERI, in Giza here in Egypt. And Professor Magdi Matkur also provided some input guidance on this presentation. So I'm going to give floor to Professor Asim. So she has been leading the AGERI. She has more than 25 scientists working with her. Her background is in plant biotechnology, molecular biology. She has worked with a number of crops like maize, sorghum, and other. She was a Fulbright scholar in the United States a few years ago. Lots of experience, and she has been a very dynamic leader. And she's going to share with us experience here in Egypt. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the BioVision Alexandria for organizing this important session during the conference, and also for inviting me to be with you today. Today, I'm going to talk about the experience of our institute, the Agricultural Genetic Engineering Research Institute, in the area of capacity building, technology transfer, and commercialization. Actually, in this session, we were supposed to give talks, me and Dr. Magdi, we were both supposed to give 2 talks about Egypt experience, but due to the short time that is allowed for the presentations, so I'm going to give the presentation on behalf of my group, me and Dr. Magdi Matkur. Yesterday, there were many talks presented by distinguished speakers about the global situation that is affecting the agriculture crops worldwide. And they emphasized on the effect of global warming and disasters happening everywhere, environmental stresses, and others that are affecting agricultural crops worldwide. So in brief, I am just briefing all of these. If we look at the world map here, we find that the crop improvement is very slow, and also the world population may exceed 10 billion in 2050. At the same time, there is a limited arable land base, and also there is deterioration in ecological balance. If we narrow down to Egypt, that we find that if we look at this slide here, we find that Egypt is one of the countries that has a very limited area for growing agricultural crops. And the Egypt agricultural land base is about 8.2 million faddan. And from this area, we have only 5.4 million faddan represent the old lands, which is the Nile Basin and Delta. And also the new lands represent the here is 2.6 million faddan. And the rain-fed area represent only 2.2 million faddan. It is represented in the north coast and the oasis. So we have a very limited amount of water in Egypt. So the main features impacting the food production consumption gap in Egypt are, first is a limited arable land base, and we have one source of water supply, which is the Nile River, and at the same time, we have a large population growth. However, Egypt has been known for many hundred years ago with its agriculture. So the agriculture sector in Egypt is one of the most important sectors affecting its economy. In early 1990s, the Egyptian government recognized the importance of biotechnology as a tool for the national development of the country, and they set the excellence in biotechnology as a national goal. So because of this, it came the establishment of our institute, the Agricultural Genetic Engineering Research Institute, for the transfer and application of genetic engineering technologies. Our institute has been established in 1989 as a National Agricultural Genetic Engineering Laboratory, and then in 1992 it has been authorized by the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation as one of the institutes within the Agricultural Research Center in Egypt. I'm going to give you just short notes about the human resource development and capacity building at AGERI. Our old administration has set a roadmap for the institute, and this is presented here in this slide. As you see, it is split into 3 phases. The first phase, the early first 10 years of the institute, we have the scientific development. We were focusing on the scientific development. And then the next phase, the phase 2, is, which is until from 2000 to 2010, we have the institutional development. And then the third phase, after that, it becomes the product delivery, which is very important for research institute, which is more than 80% of its research is applied research. So AGERI became a premier biotechnology research institution in Egypt by developing highly trained research staff. And this happened by international education and training programs, also by collaboration with international agricultural biotechnology firms. And as you see, AGERI in its early days until now has been collaborated with many universities and research institutions and international organizations around the world, even in the form of PhD and master students getting degrees from other universities, or in joint research projects, or in training courses and seminars and others, and workshops. I really like this slide because it summarizes all or maybe most of the research going in the institute, and we can add on this every year the new technologies that we are applying in our institute. So as you see, we have different disciplines and different are applied on different crops for research and different research areas. We are focusing on the agricultural crops, the food crops mainly, to benefit the sector of the agriculture. And for example, some crops like potato, tomato, cotton, sorghum, corn, banana, wheat, date palm, canola, other oil crops also are available, and other ornamental crops. In different research areas like resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses, environmental stresses, genome mapping, fingerprinting. Also, we have research on quality improvement and biofarming. AGERI have contributed in capacity building not only for its own scientists, but also for the scientists in other research institutions. So by organizing short-term structured group training courses for graduate and undergraduate students from other research centers and universities in Egypt. Also, AGERI has collaborated with regional and international organizations in organizing training courses for trainees from Egypt and other countries around the world, on all levels, the national, regional, and international. Also, we are organizing regular seminars and workshops and symposium. Every year we have a workshop to present our most recent achievements in the research, in different research areas in the institute. So international and regional training courses are constantly being organized by AGERI to provide an opportunity for scientists and researchers from Africa and the Middle East to gain experience in the use of advanced molecular biology techniques, such as molecular markers, plant transformation, virus diagnostics, molecular biology, and others. In the area of commercialization, because the Egyptian government believed in our research and supported the research, not only by financially, but also we have encouragement and support from the government. So AGERI, within the first 10 years of its age, was being able to commercialize its first commercial product, which was an environmentally friendly BT-based biopesticide. And this biopesticide has triple activity against Lepidoptera, Coleoptera, and Diptera. This product is being marketed through a private company, and it is still being marketed in the market until now. As we are committed to a high level of research, so we are up to date in making research related to agriculture. So we have research going on the development of crops tolerant to biotic and abiotic stresses for development of resistance to disease and cope with environmental changes to improve the productivity within the area cultivated. Also, we have research on development of novel tools for pest and disease management. We have a whole genome sequencing projects for structural and functional genomics. Also, we have research on genome mapping, molecular markers, and plant molecular breeding. Of course, because we have only one commercial product until now, but we have more products have potential to be commercialized in the future. So if we look about our potential products, the first one will be the long staple Giza Bulgar 2, which is cotton variety has made by crossing the Egyptian elite germplasm to Bulgar 2 Monsanto. In that project, we have 3 partners, the AGERI and Cotton Research Institute and the Monsanto company. And this cotton is ready for commercialization, and it was just waiting on the shelf for the legislation and the regulations. We have other potential products that may come out in the future, and for the commercialization, AGERI also in the early years of its establishment was able to establish an office for intellectual property rights. And for commercialization, we were focusing from the beginning on commercialization and marketing. So we established this office, and then the office has been adopted by the Agriculture Research Center to serve the whole center of the ARC. So also we have other products coming from our research that can have potential for marketing in the future. like the improved crops with better productivity, tolerant to biotic and abiotic stresses. These crops can be cultivated in newly reclaimed lands. That is the aim for and the target for the country in the recent years. These crops can be, we have some crops generated by GMO technology, and also we have the knowledge and experience for generating new crops using the molecular breeding technology. The crops, maybe you can see as, for example, not everything, but for example, wheat, sorghum, maize, potato, sweet potato, sesame, and other oil crops, and also tomato. Also, there are other disciplines going in the institute in different areas, so they can have also commercial products like biopesticides, other biopesticides that the one that we already commercialized, but and also we have some research on biofertilizers, improvement of crops by genetic selection technology. Also, we can produce diagnostic kits for different plant diseases and viruses. We can have new tools for pest control, and these are projects running in the institute and funded by the Academy of Scientific Research and the Egyptian government, and also projects for production of bioenergy, biofuel. In terms of technology transfer, in order to move the cutting-edge research from lab to market, to make significant impact on the marketplace, we need a lot of things. First thing is the political will. It's very important that the government and the country believe in our science so that we can move from the lab to the marketplace. For this, we need to have the GMO legislation to be in place. Also, we need to build trust with the private sector for commercialization of our products coming from our labs. Also, we need to have sustainable and adequate governmental funding for high-quality research, because since we started, we are dedicated to high-quality research. And we have plans. When we start the project, it doesn't end in 1 or 2 years. The researcher planned for at least 3-5 years to finish and deliver the product. So we need the funding to be adequate and sustainable. Also, the private sector contribution is not enough. So we need more contribution from the private sector, because the private sector, the farmers, the companies are one of the stakeholders that are going to get benefits from the research. So we need them to share and put hands together to release our products. So this can be made by public-private partnerships. Of course, there are many challenges and opportunities in our area. As I mentioned, the inadequate governmental funding, the biosafety law need to be in place. So it is not in place so far, but hopefully in the near future it will be discussed and released. Also, there is a huge gap between research institutions and private sector companies. The private sector does not contribute in funding R&D, research and development, so we need more contribution, more funding. Also, there is not enough collaboration between research institutions. Research institutions are not collaborating enough. There is collaboration, but in my opinion, it's not enough. Because not AGERI only in Egypt is an institution who has this technologies, but I believe that many institutions in Egypt around all the country have these technologies. So we don't need to have repetition of the research, but we need to collaborate with each other and to complement each other. There is also one big problem that we are facing because of instability in funding and lack of funding also. The scientists getting degrees from abroad, sometimes they don't come back to the country. So we have what is called brain drain. So I hope that if we have available funding and sustainable resources, so the researchers can come back to the country. For our future outlook, we are focusing on human resource development and continuing in organizing, attending training courses and workshops to exchange experience and knowledge. Also, we are adopting the most recent technologies available worldwide and applying them to address existing challenges in Egyptian agriculture. Moreover, we are dedicated to high quality research. As we started in the beginning, we are still dedicated for that, to adopt the most recent technologies. And of course, delivering the products and technologies to the market is one of our biggest aim that we look forward for it. In conclusion, Egypt have knowledge, experience, and capacity for high quality research. So we are not missing anything, just we need to switch from and make the transfer from the lab to the marketplace. Put a regulation that can regulate this, put legislation or make a mechanism for the transfer of the technology. And it's not, I think individual efforts is not enough. It has to be like regulations and mechanism, certain mechanism for everybody working in our area to how to transfer from the lab to the marketplace. Also, the biotechnology can benefit farmers and agriculture sector, so we need all stakeholders to put hands together and collaborate. More investments are needed in the area of technology transfer and commercialization. And also we need contribution of all partners to work together for the transfer of technology. Finally, I think the Arab scientists in the Middle East have the experience and have the knowledge. And Arab scientists in long history, if we look many ancient ago, Arab sciences had affected the science and innovations. So we need the Middle East and Arab scientists to share and contribute in science and technology development with other countries in the world. Also, our young scientists, we would like to encourage them and contribute in innovation and creativity. We need to work all together for making strong connection between research and business community for commercialization. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shireen. Nice example of one of the product taken from laboratory to the market, and other products are in the pipeline. Hopefully, maybe next BioVision will have more stories, more success stories. So thank you. Okay, so we had presentations from Sub-Saharan Africa and here in the Middle East, North Africa. Now we'll move to Asia, Southeast Asia. We have with us Dr. Jane Payumo from the Philippines. Dr. Payumo is actually currently working at the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia as an integrative activity specialist. Dr. Payumo and we have been collaborating for past 10 years. She got her PhD degree from Washington State University in Pullman. And the first time when I met with Dr. Payumo, she was with PhilRice, Philippines Rice Research Institute. And she and her colleagues did an excellent work putting together the intellectual property policy and the whole technology transfer framework so that the new rice varieties developed by PhilRice and other technologies could reach to the small-scale farmers there. So we invited Dr. Payumo to share some of the Philippines experience. Please.
Thank you so much, Kareem, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I am very delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and it's also my first time here in Egypt. Again, my name is Jane Payumo. I came from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology from Tuwal, Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to share with you our experiences in implementing intellectual property and technology transfer in the Philippines and in Indonesia. Since my university has already been said, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, or KAUST for short, it's the first co-educational institution in Saudi Arabia, and it has been established by the former king, King Abdullah, to serve as a beacon of knowledge and to enhance science, technology, and engineering in the kingdom and in the world. So there we have three main research divisions, as shown in this slide. and the division on computer, electrical, mathematical sciences and engineering, and biological and environmental sciences and engineering host many of the biosciences and biotechnology related research that connect very well with the theme of this conference, the BioVision conference. So going back to my talk, the title of my presentation today is about intellectual property and opportunities for food security in emerging Asia, especially focused on Philippines and Indonesia. These two countries are very special to me because, as Karim said, I originally came from the Philippines. I was trained as a rice biotechnologist in Philippine Rice Research Institute. And Indonesia is also very close to my heart because I have had so many projects there with USAID funding. And I know that many of you have already heard about our best Philippine mango. And probably if you've visited one of our airports, the ice cream mango, that we are very popular. And then the batik in Indonesia. Both of these are intellectual property. And they said that now with the developments in Southeast Asia, these two countries are now called the new Asian tigers. They are emerging markets. But are they really there yet? To me, I think not there. They are not there yet because especially when I see these kids, these impoverished kids who consider themselves being food secured only when there's rice in the table. So I think that there are more things to be done, not only in Egypt, not only in sub-Saharan Africa, but also even in these emerging economies. They continue to struggle with food importation, especially with rice. They are still always in the top 5 of the world's top importing countries in terms of rice production. So I think that there's more to be done, and I would like to highlight here 2 studies that advocate for change and offer solutions. So as you can see here, and in order of priority, that besides the political will of the government, the government and research institutions should work together in addressing irrigation, transportation, the presence of quality seeds, integrated crop management, mechanization, technology showcase, extension-related activities, and even addressing issues on climate change. But then again, I'd like to argue that in this modern days, it's not only that we need to address these factors, we also need to tap into modern concepts such as intellectual property. And I'd like to highlight here the research that I did as part of my graduate education, that intellectual property is very important in agricultural development, as AGERI is already experiencing, that without intellectual property management capacities at institutions, it's now difficult to collaborate. It's no more a handshake thing between researchers. We need to have intellectual properties in place in order for us to acquire, to adopt, to commercialize technologies that are coming from the public sector institutions. So the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or Southeast Asia in general, are already progressing in terms of intellectual property and using new innovations. In the areas of agriculture biotechnology, it has been a huge research priority as indicated in the Asian Research Framework. There's also great progress in terms of using conventional biotechnologies such as tissue culture. And modern biotechnology is slowly progressing. And it's quite sad to note that researchers have to defend again themselves with the government in order for them to convince that biotechnology is safe, as Professor Shaheen as alluded earlier. But as my colleague Frank here indicated, the moratorium in the Philippines, in the commercialization of genetically modified crops in the Philippines, which has first implemented the food biosafety, the first in Southeast Asia, has already been lifted. So this is a good news. And in terms of intellectual property and technology transfer, it's an emerging concept, and more institutions are adopting this concept to help elevate research and also commercialization of research outputs. So I said emerging because, like my colleague Ruth has mentioned, there is still a big challenge for public research institutions in Southeast Asia because of this public good, public domain mindset. And also, of course, because of the publish or perish mindset among our researchers. Government funding will come, and they will be funneled to government research institutions, but there's no governmental policy that would allow them to own the intellectual property, just like the United States scheme, which Dr. Maridia will be mentioning today. So there's no incentive for researchers to move forward and protect and manage their intellectual property, and for institutions to benefit and the researchers to benefit. So what happens is you have research results that have low impact, research results that are being hidden in the laboratory shelves, and researchers do not have the desire to elevate these activities and impact their lives or the institutions in general. But that is the general framework, and I'm going to highlight today two success stories, two institutions that have moved forward, have taken the positive steps to embrace intellectual property and technology transfer. So I'd like to highlight here my former institution, Philippine Rice Research Institute. Like Karim has mentioned, I was one of the trainees of the MSU IP and Capacity Building Training Program. I came back and then brought with them the skills and knowledge that I gained through Dr. Karim Maridia's group, and then had a homework that after a few weeks, we had to come back and submit a draft of the intellectual property policies that would help our institution. So we were very successful. And now Philippine Rice Research Institute, as shown in this table, we are actively pursuing modern biotechnology. We don't worry about intellectual property issues anymore. We can collaborate with any researcher across the globe because we have an intellectual property policy that guides us in terms of setting up this collaboration. In terms of patent application, PhilRice is also aggressively filing patents, and the capacity building program is continuing. They don't have a lawyer. They have an in-house lawyer who they also sent for capacity building training program at MSU. And some of the inventors over there have received awards from the government recognizing their efforts. Licensing to industry is also happening. They also give royalty share to the researchers, and the entrepreneurship program for researchers is also actively being done. So that is the same story also with Bogor Agricultural University, also has the same story. And I visited them last year, and I was so happy to note that many of the researchers who never appreciated IP before is now talking IP more than me, because they now appreciate how it can help them, how it can serve, how IP can serve as an incentive for them to be more creative and to be more confident in dealing with foreign partners especially. So with that success story, I think that if these two institutions are able to do it, I know that your institutions would also be able to do the same. So I'd like to end this presentation with this few statements, and Ruth and my other colleagues have already mentioned this. that intellectual property issues, especially those issues that deal with agriculture and food security, will continue to hound us. So we should be prepared in dealing with them. Emerging research institutions such as AGERI, such as Bibliotheca, I know that you can handle them very well with an intellectual property management policy in place. Public-private sector partnership, again, is the right model to move forward. And continuous IP capacity building. It's not enough to attend a patent course, a basic patent course, and learn about IP, trademarks, and what are the difference. I think we need to embrace it very well and adapt it to our daily lives. And for us to also to scale up management efforts, not just the simple training, we need to do some follow-up. And for institutions who do not have a policy in place, for you to be able to realize that the institutional need, that we should not be waiting for USAID or any other funding institutions to come and let them decide that we have a problem on managing our institutional intellectual properties. And I encourage all of you to be like a community of experts. We can work together, we can write a paper together, share our stories together so that people across the globe would know our success stories and our learnings throughout this process. So with that, I thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer questions later.
Thank you, Jane. You can see two more success stories, the Phil Rice and the Bogor Agriculture Universities. I've been to Philippines many times. Mangoes are really good, you know. Maybe you can trade it with dates from here, you know, or some other fruits. Pardon me? Yeah, and as Jane mentioned, it's not easy. Public institution is a big, you know, to bring this intellectual property-led technology transfer is a big cultural shift. So you really have to educate your scientists, your staff, and also get the support from the upper administration. And Jane did very good. She was able to convince the director, you know, to move forward. And same thing with Shireen. She mentioned some of the challenges, but I think we have to keep working. Okay, so from Southeast Asia, now we move to South Asia, where I originally come from. So South Asia is a big region, 8 countries, 1.6 billion people. Almost 25% of the world lives there. In China, if you add it, it becomes even more. So we have 2 speakers. First speaker is from Sri Lanka, Dr. Hashini Galhina, small country, about 22 million people. And then we'll have a second presentation from Dr. Neeru Bhushan from India, big country. So you get to hear, you know, how the small countries and big countries are addressing. Hashini is a faculty member at Michigan State University, originally from Sri Lanka. She got her master's degree from Oklahoma State University in agriculture economics and a PhD degree from Michigan State University in agriculture. And she did her thesis research on food security actually in Sri Lanka. She went to the areas which were affected by 30 years of civil war, and she did an excellent work there. So I'll give a floor to Hashini to share their experience.
Thank you, Professor Karim, for that kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm very privileged to be in Egypt. This is my first time as well, so I join my colleagues on that. So today I'm planning to talk to you, give you a kind of an overview about what's going on in Sri Lanka in terms of research and development, innovation and technology transfer. Sri Lanka is a country in South Asia, as Professor Karim just mentioned. It's a small country, but you know that South Asia, maybe you know that South Asia as a region is doing extremely well. In fact, in the recent years, it has been showing phenomenal growth, economic growth. In fact, the World Bank has reported that South Asia is the fastest growing region in the world, and it has been sustaining 7% growth rate for the past several years. Despite these beautiful opportunities and the great progress it's making, South Asia is also having a lot of challenges. I think some of the major problems or major hindrances that we are facing that's affecting development in South Asia are, we know, population growth. We have a lot of population and it's growing rapidly. We also have a lot of problems with natural resources, managing it, the kind of protecting it. And then we also have a problem of human resources. What I mean a problem is that we don't have a lot of capacity as a region. At the turn of the century, the countries of the world decided that we need to give ourselves some challenges, set ourselves some development goals. We started to consider Millennium Development Challenges, as we called them then. In 2015, they were converted to Sustainable Development Challenges. For South Asia, these challenges have been in different forms, different volumes, different contexts. So you can understand, even for a small region, it's not easy. For my country, Sri Lanka, this has been even a difficult task. We have endured a war, a 30-year-long civil conflict, which has devastated our country. It has serious implications on how our country has progressed and the way the agriculture and development systems have functioned. Just to give a little bit of background about Sri Lanka, in case you didn't know, it's located in South Asia. It's a small country and small island country of about 22 billion people. We have a very vibrant agriculture sector. Currently, our GDP growth rate is about 7.7, which kind of averages out when you get all the countries in South Asia together. But the interesting thing here is that agriculture employs 1/4 of our population. So whatever happens to agriculture impacts 1/4 of the people. That's over 5 billion people, 5 million people. And also agriculture is important to our economic growth because you may have heard about Sri Lankan tea. Ceylon tea is the most important agricultural export in our country, and it is critical to our growth. A little more background: the war in Sri Lanka, the civil conflict ended in 2009, and it has, as I was saying, resulted in a number of socioeconomic problems, social, economic, environmental. You can even break it into that. And it also has hindered our achievement of Millennium Development Goal, or the Sustainable Development Goals as we call them today. Although after the war ended in 2009, there has been significant government investment on infrastructure, that has not really helped in improving agriculture development, in improving economic growth. We have to do more than just developing agriculture. And so the government as well as the international organizations that have been working in Sri Lanka has mentioned in many occasions that it is important to focus on technologies, innovation, R&D, technology transfer, commercialization, and so forth. I think they found that the way to be to address our challenges. Sri Lanka technology development is not new to Sri Lanka. It has been a culture of innovation, or it has a long history of innovation. Our infrastructure, or the irrigation infrastructure, is dating back to 400 BC. It's probably not as old as the Egyptian history, but we are proud of what we have. And also we have a very advanced indigenous medicine technology. Sri Lanka has been under the British for about 200 years, and we also inherited some technologies and innovations from them. Most prominent of them are the railroad system and the road system, and also a seaport, which has been instrumental to our economic growth, although initially they were really used to extract resources from our country. We also inherited 3 research institutes from them, which were important to our export economy: tea, rubber, and coconut. The trajectory of the post-conflict development is very interesting. As soon as we got independence from Britain, the country has focused on, the government has focused on developing the existing institutions, but later on there were new institutions that were established for a number of crop-specific institutions. And also, the public spending just after independence was very high, comparatively high, 0.4% of the GDP. And there was also an escalated interest among the politicians or the political parties to take agriculture forward, take R&D forward. But of course, in end of 1970 or early 1980s, we were taken up by a civil conflict, which really had detrimental effects on the research and development, innovation, as well as the kind of resources that it received, because most of the resources went into subsidize the war. This is just to show you the kind of pathway that our science and technology development took place. Some of the prominent milestones are the establishment of the Ministry of Science and Technology, and also the enactment of the Act, and the establishment of 119 research institutes in the country. So the framework, if you take the case of national crop research infrastructure, it's made out of three components: the public sector, which is headed by the Ministry of Agriculture and some other ministries that have been recently established, and the national university system, as well as some public or private institutions. The private sector is very small in terms of their R&D scope. Just put this slide here just to show you that how the expenditure in R&D has taken place in Sri Lanka. As you can see, I was mentioning earlier that in the early days, just before the conflict started, there has been an increase in our investments, but over time, after the 1975 or late 1970s when the war started, the investments have gone down tremendously. And just after the war ended in 2009, you see an escalation again. Although as a volume, the amount of money spent on R&D has increased, the percentage of GDP invested in R&D is still very low. This is how the investments are distributed. 0.16 of the GDP is first going into government R&D systems, then about 41% go into private sector, and 3% is about FDIs, or foreign direct investments. So if you look at the left side, or I think, yeah, left side of the right side of the presentation, you'll see that most of the research money goes into the agriculture sector, followed by engineering and natural resources. But still, there's more to be done. Currently, there's a lot of R&D going on. Some of the crops that have been commercialized are given in this slide. We see that 30% increase in research funding, but what we see compared to other countries in what we fall under, Sri Lanka now falls under low middle income countries, but compared to countries like Thailand, Vietnam, India, Malaysia, we are still falling behind, so there's a lot to be done. Then there are several constraints to the progress of R&D. We have over-relied on our public system. Commercialization or technology transfer takes place through the public sector, the public institutions and public extension system. This is already overwhelmed. It can't support the demand that it has. Then also, we need to improve our scientific base. We are experiencing a lot of brain drain, which we need to find ways to keep the brains within the country. And also, we realize it's partly because of the fact that the education system in Sri Lanka is mostly focused on teaching. We need to bring in research and outreach into the equation so that whatever is educated, you research and you also give it to the public. Then also I talked about the fact that there is also very little investment that needs to go on. Although there is significant amount of political interest, it doesn't get converted into policies or funding or R&D strategies. It remains as ideas. That has to kind of change, and that has been a detriment. Then also, poor innovation efficiency. What it means by poor innovation efficiency is that technologies don't get converted into or do not get transferred into applications as much as they should. They just remain on shelves. People do it, but researchers do it. They don't get into people's hands. And also there is a lack of confidence among researchers and investors because of the IP situation. There is a little concern as to whether they'll be protected or not. So in terms of its innovation index, Sri Lanka is doing extremely well in the South Asia region. It's ranked very high. But as you can see here, it hasn't really, the country has not been able to patent or to protect its IP as much as it wants to. So in strengthening the innovation system, I am proposing a few recommendations. First one is to increase funding. Funding can be increased through public, private, or donor funding, as well as cost sharing. Build technological competence and human resource and infrastructure to support research and development, as well as coordination among. You don't have to do everything on your own. You can collaborate. You can work with others to maximize on resources, and also to develop an attractive innovation environment, a reward system that would help, and an IP system that would enable. And then also strong IP protection mechanisms so that people, the research are protected very well. The plant breeders' rights are still pending, so that needs to be taken into consideration. Also, several institutional changes. The people are used to a culture of not an innovation culture. In entrepreneurship has to be enhanced, and a market-driven innovation culture should be established. So there are several points here. The last few slides, I want to focus that Global Competitiveness Index suggests that Sri Lanka is doing very well in terms of its competitiveness, its innovation. It has the basic requirements. In certain, like in the efficiency standards, Sri Lanka is lagging behind India, but generally it's doing very well. So what it's suggesting right now, the World Economic Forum is suggesting that Sri Lanka is moving towards an efficiency-driven economic trend. So that could really help to build Sri Lanka's economic development, and to get those technologies, improve the well-being of those that are poor, that are suffering from hunger, malnutrition, and so forth, and then achieve those Millennium Development Goals, or the Sustainable Development Goals that we are trying to achieve. So hopefully, and ultimately, socioeconomic growth. Thank you. Sorry, I took a little longer.
Thank you, Ashini. We'll now move to a bigger economy, India. We have with us Dr. Neeru Bhushan. She is a principal scientist with the Zonal Technology Management, Business Planning and Development. They call BPD, and she'll explain more about that, with the Indian Agriculture Research Institute, which is part of Indian Council of Agriculture Research, ICAR, which is a public institution. ICAR has more than 90 or 100 research institutes spread across the country, and IRI is a prominent one in New Delhi. Dr. Bhushan has done an excellent job at this one of the zonal technology management, business planning and development unit. You know, remarkable work in last 2-3 years. She has been able to successfully link up with more than 350 private companies in India. You know, in India right now there is a big economic growth. When I was a student, there were only 2 or 3 seed companies in India. Now there are more than 500 seed companies. In every sector, private sector and government has doubled. I think our R&D investment was 1% of GDP. Now I think they've doubled it to 2 or 3%. So a lot of funding, you know, that I think from the Egypt presentation, from Africa presentation, and from Sri Lanka, the funding is a big issue. So I think in India they've done a very good step. So I'll give floor to Dr. Neeru, but before I say, her husband is here also in the room, and he is in charge of the public extension path of technology transfer. And Neeru is taking care of this IPR, private sector led. So it's nice to have in the same house. You have the 2 tracks, you know. Now I don't know which one is faster and so on. Maybe she will tell us. But thank you, sir, for welcome. Neeru, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Karim, for a nice introduction. And good afternoon, friends. I'll be discussing with you my experience for the technology transfer and commercialization in the field of agriculture. For a country like India, with a population of 1 billion plus, food and nutritional security is a huge challenge. And this challenge gets accentuated by the fact that India has to support 17.6% of world's human population and 15% of livestock population, with only 4.2% of world's fresh water share and 2.4% of the world area, and similarly the agriculture area. The another challenge is the area under cultivation cannot be increased. There is no scope to increase the area under cultivation. So the only hope is to increase productivity and use efficiency, like Sir Golden Conway stated in his opening remark yesterday, that we have to produce more with less through innovations and taking these innovations to the farmers level. Yes, it's okay. Thank you. Okay. After independence in 1947, India used to face a lot of famines and millions used to die because of hunger. Then India achieved green revolution in 1970s. Now we are not only self-sufficient but emerged as a strong exporter in agriculture commodities. And we are among top 3 producers in the world in terms of production of milk, wheat, rice, fruits and vegetables, and many more. And apart from the green revolution, we are at the different stages of achieving golden, blue, white, yellow revolution. And now the common underlying intervention is the active involvement of the farmer scientist. We are taking consideration of the farmer scientist. This slides enlist the IP legislations that we have. During the window of 10 years, of transition from 1995 to 2005, we aligned our laws as well as we enacted new laws as to comply with the TRIPS requirement. India has one of the world's largest national agriculture research system. As Professor mentioned, that at the apex level we have Indian Council of Agriculture Research, which is popularly known as ICAR or ICAR. And under that, we have 100 odd research institutions and 71 state agriculture universities. By realizing the importance of IP for the innovative technologies and to inculcate the IP culture within the public research institution, India ICR came up with a very comprehensive guidelines in 2006. And these guidelines is based on the 6 pillars that I'm going to explain one by one. I'll be sharing IP management and technology transfer in ICAR, and the parallel system has been adopted by the state agriculture universities. Under these guidelines, ICAR has created the 3-tier IP management structure. With the bottom-up approach, we have created specialized institute technology management unit at each research institution, which is responsible for the IP management and the tech transfer. With the middle tier, which is where I am working, is the main tier, and it is responsible for providing the hand-holding to these ITMUs, as well as doing the IP management and tech transfer on their behalf at the national and the international level. While this unit serves as a center of excellence and is a vital linkage between the bottom level as well as the apex level. The apex level provides us the policy guidelines. So it is a very decentralized system which has the bottom-up approach as well as the top-up approach. So basically we have the hybrid system. This is the broad geographical outreach of these journal institutes. We have north, we have 2 journal institutes at north, and then east, west, and south. This slide looks very complicated, but it explains our IP management and commercialization process that starts with when the invention is being disclosed by the inventor. And after the assessment, if we found that it is worth IP protection, then the IP will be assigned to the ICAR, and ICAR will be the applicant, and the scientist will be the true and the first inventor. And after then, the terms and conditions for the commercialization will be finalized by the Institute Technology Management Committee. Based on that, we will be doing the licensing agreement. And if the technology needs further refinement, then we will be providing the R&D backup to the industry. Coming on the valuation approach, we have 3-tier structure. Basically, we have shortlisted some of the technologies that we are giving free of cost for social entrepreneur. Then second is to give boost to the local SMEs. We are providing the technology to our local SMEs at a very low prices, low licensing fee. But if it is a high-end technology, then we try to speak the language of the corporate world. 10 years journey has been very satisfying. The patent is increasing, number of technology is increasing, and the industry partnership is also increasing. The one highlight is we follow the non-exclusive policy at the national level, but we are quite open to consider the exclusive licensing policy on case-to-case basis outside. This system is very quick and fast, and that can be stated with one example of wheat variety ST3086 that we have licensed to around 200 companies in one go, and it leads to a larger dissemination to 2 million hectares within a possible minimum time. The another variety we could disseminate at 8 million hectare area, which leads to extra $1 billion to the farmer's pocket. India has the largest number of the mobile users. To take the advantage of that, to reach to the maximum stakeholders, we launched the technology mobile app for technologies, technology transfer and commercialization, Pusa Krishi, so as to reach to the stakeholders. And this app contains the information about the technologies which are ready for the commercialization. Now, friends, incentive for innovators has emerged, one of the most important pillar for our tech transfer system. You know, the incentives, human psychology, that we respond to the incentives. So 42% of the licensing fee as well as the royalty earned by tech transfer goes back to the inventor team, and 30% goes back to the system for augmenting the IP services and tech transfer. The remaining goes to the employee staff welfare fund and the other activities. We have taken enough steps to build our capacity to educate scientists with the different dimension of the IPR. And now it is mandatory for the PG student to take IP course. I'm PG faculty for IP course also. And to take these efforts further, ICR has also established its for-profit corporate company, AGERI Innovate, in which we are trying to create this system to equity participation with startups and the industry. Now India has Startup India and Startup India policy, and to take the advantage of that, the new dimension of agribusiness incubator has been added, in which we are facilitating the startup companies in the agri sector. We have also tied with the international institution like MSU and Cambridge in UK. We are also taking advantage of the WIPO. Coming to the challenges, in tech transfer, I find that valuation of the technology is one of the most important challenge, as it based on number of factors. And another, at present, based on our experience and assessing the potential or the strength of the local SMEs, we are doing the valuation part, but in future we will be requiring more systematic and the new tools will be required for the valuation of the technologies. Another, the trained professional to handle these kind of programs who can understand the technical language, business, as well as the legal aspect is the need of the hour. Another way forward that we are planning to use ICT in a big way in future to use for the technology transfer. Another is we are giving emphasis for demand-driven research, and more emphasis is on the public-private partnerships, and we are also integrating our youth who has an idea with tech transfer system through incubation process. We are also encouraging our farmers to transfer themselves into enterprise by giving them new structure of the farmer-producer company. Thank you.
Okay, I know we are running short of time. I will go very quickly. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving us opportunity to organize this session and inviting us here. This is my second visit to Alexandria, but I've been to Egypt many, many times. We had a very successful project with Professor Magdi Matkour and Professor Shirin Hashim and their team at AGERI for almost 10 years. So this is maybe my 30th trip to Egypt, and it's always a pleasure to be back here. Very quickly, I'll skip some of the slides because of the time limit. So Michigan State University, we are a public university in the United States. We are referred as a land-grant university. And our mission is twofold, like any other university, advancing knowledge and transforming lives. So everything that we do, we have as a public university, we have an angle to application, transforming lives. Those of you who have never been to Michigan, that's where we are located, on the northeast corner. We are bordering Canada there. We are surrounded, we are kind of like an island, like Sri Lanka. We are surrounded by these Great Lakes. And our agriculture is the second most diverse agriculture after California. And we are a 160-year-old university. We have 50,000 students from more than 130 countries. As a land-grant university in the United States, each state has at least one land-grant university. These are public universities. And as a land-grant, our mission is threefold: research, teaching, and extension outreach. So our source of funding, our annual budget of the entire university is about a little over $500 million, and we get funding from many sources. But one of the things I want to highlight, and I think several of you mentioned about funding, the funding given by the state government is steadily declining. When the university was established, we were getting 80 to 90% of the funding from the state. Now it's less than 25%. So we are constantly looking for ways of generating revenues, and that's where the technology transfer and commercialization also comes as one of the potential avenues. We have 15 colleges, so College of Agriculture is the founding college, but we have other colleges, which is a plus because our students can interact with other colleges like human medicine, engineering, business, and others. Our College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, our scientists generate many different types of technologies and new varieties, research tools, animal feeds, books, farm equipments, and so on. And as a public university, we give it, we have several options. One is we don't protect and give it away free. We also protect it and license it. Sometimes we protect it and give it away free in a very controlled manner to the people that we want to give. We also use it as a bargaining chip. And also our policy, university policy, allows faculty to be a professor and also start new companies. In the United States, intellectual property protection was codified in the US Constitution, yeah? So it's really part of the Constitution. In fact, the first patent that was issued in 1790 was related to agriculture, was related about the process of making potash. Types of protection in the US, we have patents, trademarks, copyrights, plant variety protection, trade secrets. We don't use geographic indicators much in the US. I know some countries like India and others use that. So what really changed the landscape of technology transfer at public university was the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980. It was a law passed in 1980 that gave public institutions and non-profit universities and non-profit to have rights to retain the technologies that were funded, that were developed through funding from the government. And then at the same time, there was a 1980 Supreme Court case on the patent application claimed a genetically engineered bacterium, and the Supreme Court went in favor. So that allowed patenting of the biotech products. The Bayh-Dole Act gave really universities, and this was a major shift in the federal policy. Now that is allowing public universities really to move forward. So at Michigan State University, taking advantage of the Bayh-Dole Act, we established a technology transfer office we used to call Intellectual Property Office in 1992. So even after passing the law, it took 10 years for us. If you go to the Autumn website, Autumn is the Association of University Technology Managers. They have information on technology transfer offices from several universities, from most of the public universities in the US and also from Canada and so on. So please visit this Autumn website, www.autumn.net. So we have an office now, and we recently changed the name in 2012. We call it MSU Technologies, and along with the Office of MSU Technology, we have established 2 new offices. One is the Business Connect, MSU Business Connect, and also Spartan Innovation. We have right now 4 platforms at the universities. One is the MSU Business Connect, the MSU Technologies, Spartan Innovation, which starts new ventures, and then also we have an incubator, which is Michigan Biotechnology Institute. And all of this, we have created what we call MSU Innovation Center, which did not exist when I joined the university. This is in last 5 years, new change. So MSUT helps in filing patents and accessing new technologies and licensing and so on. But Business Connect links our scientists with the industry for sponsored research. And then Spartan Innovation helps both faculties and also students to launch new companies. We have a policy, I have put a website there, and the royalties generated are shared with the inventors. So this is our policy. So when first $5,000, when any royalty is earned, first $5,000 is completely, 100% is given to the scientist. University doesn't keep. But as the amount goes up, the share to inventor goes down. But our formula is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So we are not as generous as India. India has 42%. We are about 30. So almost 1/3 of the royalties. We had one technology that was earning royalty of $20 million per year, which was a cancer treatment. So you can imagine those professors became millionaires. So this money is given on top of the salary, yeah? This is a royalty money earned. I wrote a book, and book was only earning $100 royalty a year or something. I was getting $100, because it was less than 5,000. So it's really very transparent system. But this is an incentive. This is a big incentives for people too. So our university has a portfolio of around 1,800 patents. Every year we get about 125 new inventions that are disclosed. They come not only from agriculture but from all over the campus. And about 50% of the inventions are patented. Not everything that is disclosed is patented. Patenting is very expensive in the US. It costs $20,000, $30,000 sometime, including the legal fees. And of all of the patents, we are only able to license about 15 to 20 of them. And last year, our royalty income was $10 million in the whole year. So on an investment of $500 million in R&D, we are only generating $10 million of royalty. So really earning money is not the only our goal, yeah? And money should not be the goal. Our really goal is to speed up the transfer of technology so that the society can benefit. And while doing that, if we can earn money, we do. So this is what we are. By the way, whenever our breeders file for plant variety protection, they get a nice certificate from the Plant Variety Protection Office, and we have two systems for the new plant varieties. We have what we call public release and a private release. So public release is done through Michigan Crop Improvement Association, and private release is through a competitive process, and it's done through private companies. And we have done several successful technology transfer. Here is one example of cherry. I don't know if you have eaten cherry when you come to. These are sweet cherries, Hungarian. This germplasm was bought from Hungary. Our breeder went to Hungary. But then every plant, every seedling that is sold, the Balaton cherry, is trademarked by word Balaton, which is a lake in Hungary. The Hungarian Institute gets 50% of the royalty. Yeah. So if the tree, if the seedling is sold for $1, they get 50 cents. So it's really nice arrangement. And in fact, Hungarian Institute is now telling us to license to more other countries because it's a win-win situation for both of them. We also got a gene from Syngenta company and put it in the potato. We did trials in Egypt and in South Africa. But as Dr. Shirin mentioned, because of the biosafety regulations, we were not able to commercialize. We have a technology that's for cold and drought tolerant. This was licensed to a small company in US called Mendel Biotechnology. Blueberry varieties. We have excellent blueberry varieties, and they have been licensed all over the world to companies in Australia, South America, Europe, Canada, and others. And these blueberries varieties alone are bringing a little more than $1 million in royalty a year. We have also licensed some technologies to a seed company in India. So now we are really opening up in terms of our licensing. This is for insect resistance, drought tolerance, and glyphosate. Our faculties and students, as I said, can start companies. We have a policy that allows, so a number of companies have been started. And so for international licensing, one of the big challenges is to finding a reliable partner, yeah? The trust is a big issue. And of course, the focus we want to have it is two-way partnership, so there are mutual benefits. And then this big hurdle of regulatory issues, biosafety and food safety issues, particularly when you have food products, and particularly with GMOs. You cannot take it to the market unless these regulatory issues are. And we find that education, capacity building, training is very important. So we launched a program on intellectual property management technology transfer in 1995, and we've been doing this every year or every other year. A number of people from around the world. That's the program that Jane mentioned that she was able to come. We published a number of books and other publications related to, in a simple language, in a non-legal language, so that the scientist can understand the legal jargon of this. And some of them are available on our website. We have a beautiful campus. All of you are welcome. Please come. And we have 4 seasons. Right now it's just spring starting, and then we have a summer, then fall, and then the winter snow. For any more information, please feel free to contact myself or Tom Harlash. So that's our experience.
Thank you, Professor Karim. I have the enviable position of having the honor to be on this panel and to speak at this conference in this historic city and in this historic institution. Perhaps the unenviable position of being the 7th speaker after 6 such excellent presentations, and the schedule tells me I have negative 24 minutes for my presentation, but I suppose the good news is that the people who are here either really care or they're too polite to leave, so thank you for staying, and I will try to keep it as short as possible. So, my name is Meghna Sharafuddin, and I'm an Associate Program Officer for the World Intellectual Property Organization, and more specifically the Global Challenges Division, where we run 2 consortiums or public-private partnerships platforms, one in global health and one in climate change. I'm going to skip a lot of slides or go through slides really quickly, but generally I'll just talk about WIPO and the role that we play as an intergovernmental organization in the IP system and our kind of views on the role of IP in facilitating tech transfer, and then use the very specific example of the 2 platforms that I work on in global health and in climate change. So WIPO is a specialized UN agency, and we specialize in intellectual property. And in our convention it says, and I want to point out this quote, that we support the use of IP for promoting national development by promoting innovation and creativity for the economic, social, and cultural development of all countries through, and this is the key phrase here, a balanced and effective international IP system. And we are based in Geneva, as Professor Karim mentioned. So generally, of course, why does the IP system exist? It exists because the idea is that we're supposed to incentivize innovation, give creators an incentive to put their time and investment into creating new things. Why? For the benefit of society. Because, of course, to grow as a society, we need innovation in culture and technology. And, of course, to incentivize the investment of additional resources in research, in cultural and technological innovation. And, of course, the idea of spurring economic growth by creating new fields and new jobs and new areas to work in. The problem here, of course, is that the IP system has to be efficiently and equitably used, which means that we have to strike a balance with public interest. You have to ensure access to the benefits of the system to those who need it the most. We live in an age where technology gives us the possibility to do so many things and so many advantages. It brings us together, it allows us to collaborate, but we often find that the most vulnerable populations in the world are the ones that bear the negative effects that these technologies bring, for example, in climate change. So how, or what practically does this mean for researchers and research institutions and SMEs? Well, fundamentally, IP is all around us. As creators of IP, you will both create IP and utilize other people's various forms of IP in the process of creation. So what does that mean for effective technology transfer? Now, as all of the speakers before me have already said, for us at WIPO, our idea is that the fundamental key here is building capacity and facilitative frameworks. And we try to use our comparative advantage as an intergovernmental organization with a very specific mandate to do that. And the example I always use is licensing. I think Neeru's slide as well, that was the overall picture of how commercialization happens, demonstrates why there's such a need for capacity, both to have the idea that, for example, if you're licensing IP from someone else, just to define your team, figure out what kind of expertise you need, what the markets are, who the potential competitors are, who your potential partners are, what your technical strengths are, what your IP strengths are, whether you have the freedom to operate. So we work with a lot of partners that simply don't have the capacity or the expertise within their institutions. So our idea is to both build that capacity and increase that capacity for sustainable work in the future, but also fundamentally to make sure that we create a global network system to most efficiently use the resources that we have available to all of us all around the world. So this means leveraging IP sensu lato, or in the broadest sense. So we're not just thinking about the technical document of the patent or the technical document of the trademark registration. We're thinking about what is the know-how, what are the skills, what are the other capacities that you absolutely need around that IP document or that IP right that you have. And WIPO, of course, that quote that I read you is in the WIPO Convention, and WIPO was established in 1967. But in 2007, we also have the WIPO Development Agenda, which very clearly mandates us to focus on technology and knowledge transfer, capacity building, licensing of IP to foster development in developing and LDCs. I'll skip over this because I'll talk a little bit more about it when I'm talking about the two platforms that we run in global health and in climate change. Apologies for my voice, I'm just recovering from bronchitis, so if I start coughing, I'll try not to take too much time. Global health. So we run this platform called WIPO Research, and WIPO Research was launched in 2011, and what we focus on is sharing innovation and innovation capacity from around the world to address neglected diseases, tuberculosis, and malaria, so a very specific area of global health. We have 102 members now and 100 collaborations, which I'll get to later. And in climate change, we have a platform called WIPO Green, which was launched a few years ago. And this is a marketplace for sustainable technologies. This is a place where both people can share technologies, they can share their needs for technologies, but also they can be connected to an international network of the kinds of expertise that they would need to be able to then commercialize or utilize those technologies in their day-to-day work. The context, of course, is this idea that all the speakers have already spoken about, which is that increased complexity requires increased collaboration. We have to try to not only build capacity, but establish the sort of environment where you can have not only the trust for deals to take place, but deals to take place with the lowest transaction cost possible. And this is what we focus on. I mentioned earlier WIPO's comparative advantage, and we really tried to leverage as much as possible the position that we have, not only as a UN agency being viewed as a neutral arbiter of these programs, but also we're very heavily embedded within the global policy dialogue of IP innovation and access discourse. And I don't just mean, sitting around and having all of our meetings in Geneva, which of course happens, but we work with institutions, as I'll demonstrate through the platforms, from all around the world, including some of the distinguished speakers that we have here today and some of the institutions that they mentioned. We also have uniquely a high level of trust with industry because as the intellectual property organization, we administer certain necessary services. So we have something called the International Bureau, and it administers three really important agreements. The first is the Patent Cooperation Treaty, which essentially, again, comes back to the theme of efficiency. So if you, instead of having a patent that you want to file in 20 different jurisdictions and having to hire 20 different IP lawyers with 20 different fields of expertise in those national domestic laws, you can file one patent with WIPO, with the Patent Cooperation Treaty, and just select which countries you want that patent to be filed in, and it automatically, after you pay what administrative fee, is filed in all of those jurisdictions. We also do the same for trademarks and for industrial designs. Now, so because of that, we have the trust of industry, and so we're in a unique position to catalyze partnerships through this model of a public-private sector partnership and to leverage intellectual property in the broadest sense. So I'll talk first about catalyzing research through into neglected diseases. So this is an area where I'm sure some of you will be familiar, but the fundamental problem is that even though in this area, like many other areas, there have been in the last few decades enormous scientific and technological innovations that have significantly made a lot of contributions, there are still huge gaps. And the challenge is balancing the rights of IP owners, balancing the rights of patent owners providing innovations, and also the rights of the people who actually need the medicines and ensuring access. So, of course, one of the key problems here is that drug development is a very high barrier to entry industry. So it involves heavy investment, long-term research, a very high fail rate, clinical trials, regulatory approvals, all of those things. So when we talk about neglected diseases, we usually talk about, in the colloquial sense of the word, the diseases that affect the bottom billion. So these are conditions that are endemic to the conditions of poverty, poor sanitation, a lack of access to water. But these are also the people who can't afford to then pay the high-end prices for the medications that are developed. So there's very little incentive to do research and development in these areas. Now, I'll just go through very briefly. This is where WIPO draws its mandate from, the WIPO Development Agenda, the UN Millennium Development Goals, and also, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals. So what is WIPO research? WIPO research has essentially three pillars. The first is that we have a database, and the database is public, it's freely searchable, everything on there can be accessed anywhere around the world by any researcher. And our members, which are about, get to that slide. Okay, we have 101 members from all around the world. And they do a variety of things. They either share their IP, their compound libraries, they share other assets, they share their institutional capacities. For example, we have the capacity to do clinical trials in X area. And they have, so this is the kinds of things that are on the database. That would be lovely, thank you. So we share patents, patent families, but again, the idea is leveraging intellectual property in the broadest sense. So we're talking about not just all of these very specific technical data, but also the other types of data services, the associated technologies and the know-how that goes with all of these things. Now, this is one part of WIPO research, but I would say, in my opinion, not the most important part. The second part of WIPO research that is, I think, the most important part, in fact, is our Partnership Hub. So Partnership Hub is actually administered not by WIPO, but by our partner organization called BioVentures for Global Health. And BioVentures for Global Health is a nonprofit agency that consists of scientists and technical experts. So not me, I'm a lawyer. My background is in international trade law and IP and access to medicines. I don't have a scientific or technical background in these areas. But these are the people that actually work with our members. So when our members, say a research institution in Ghana says, we have in this disease a very, very specific need. This is the block that we have reached in our research. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the know-how, we don't have the equipment. So they can reach out to BVGH at any time and say, this is what we want, can you find us someone who has a solution? And that's what they do. They go around to the other members of the WIPO Research Network and they establish collaborations. As you can see, these are some examples in very, very specific technical areas. Now, WIPO Research members fall into three categories. So the first are providers. Now, providers only contribute IP and resources, and our provider members are our funding members. And how we're funded is by 10 of the world's leading pharmaceutical companies, which, based on their income, contribute a certain amount of revenue which goes directly to BVGH and directly supports the establishment of these collaborations. So you can see we have Johnson & Johnson and Novartis, Takeda, Pfizer, Sanofi, Merck Sharp & Dohme, Merck KGaA, GSK, Eisai, and Lindblom. Now, this is really where the capacity building element comes in. But the third pillar of WIPO research is the idea of supporting services. And through this, we essentially offer sabbaticals. I mean, apart from everything else that WIPO does, which is publications and case studies and other learning materials, which I'll go through very briefly at the end, because I think we have a lot of resources that are underutilized because people are not aware that they exist. But the partnership, the supporting services and the capacity building essentially consists of secondments. So when we have a researcher who's in a position to train other trainers or train other students within their institutions, decide or tell us that they don't have a skill that they require, we send them on secondment. So we've had, to date, 6 researchers from mostly African institutions, from Cameroon and Ghana and Kenya and Nigeria, travel to some of our other academic institution partners, so the University of California, San Francisco, and San Diego, and Stanford University, and acquire the knowledge and the skills that they need in order to pass on to their students and to their researchers and to the other people in their institution. Very briefly, this is our pipeline in all of these diseases. You can see the stage of development. You can see the distribution of collaborations by disease, the types of partnerships that have been established across the globe. Again, trying to most efficiently use the resources that we have available by not just limiting our network to regional and local networks, but trying to really make this an international effort. This is one of our partnership stories. So you have Dr. Fidelis Chongwa, who specializes in onchocerciasis. We were really excited at WIPO that the most recent Nobel Prize for Medicine was awarded for research into natural products for river blindness, and this is something that's really encouraging and shows the potential impact of this kind of research, especially in the most affected populations of the world, the poorest populations of the world, and this is another one of our researchers. WIPO Green, climate change. So this is our green mandate, and again, much like we work with academic partners and industry for our work on public health, we also work with in a public-private partnership model for climate change. And we're, of course, tied into the dialogues that happen in UNFCCC and all of that, and the COP21. These are the relevant Sustainable Development Goals, but I'll skip over that. What is WIPO Green? So this is our website. It consists of a database, which again, we have over 2,000 green technologies in a variety of areas. We have 9 different categories, so building and construction and water and farming and forestry and energy. And this is a place where people can list the green technologies that they have available to offer for commercialization, for licensing, for joint venture, whatever the requirement might be. In any stage of development. It can be early stage technologies, can be late stage technologies. We also have a listing of needs for green technologies from around the world. And the second part, apart from the database, is the WIPO Green Network. The WIPO Green Network, again, tries to facilitate the fact that you can't just have a technology and you can't just have a seeker and then suddenly magically a deal is done. You need so many other, you need to leverage so much other expertise around that process. So this is a very brief overview of the WIPO Green Network. So we have over 66 members from all around the world, which are NGOs and companies and IGOs and universities and governments and SME networks. And for example, the AATF, which was mentioned in Ruth's presentation, we work with Autumn, which Professor Karim mentioned. With Autumn, we tried to integrate databases to ensure we have the broadest selection of technologies from all around the world possible. So one of the first database, in fact, that we integrated was the Autumn Technology Database. And AATF we work with in our very specific capacity building element. So you can see over here there's the matchmaking events, and this is something where we try to move away from the online theoretical, connecting through the database, which is fine. But in a lot of places, you need people to be talking face to face. You need to introduce them to a place where they can make the networks themselves and make the connections themselves to move on forward. So to date, we've had 2 matchmaking events, and we focus on specific sectors because we've given ourselves the enviable task of focusing on all sectors of green technology in all regions of the world with 2.5 staff members, and I say half because I work half-time on global health and half-time on climate change. So the first matchmaking event we did was on wastewater treatment in Southeast Asia. So we worked in Vietnam and Philippines and Indonesia and brought together, we went out into the field for a few months and asked municipal governments and others what their needs were around wastewater technologies, and then we tried to match them with providers of technologies. And we brought people around the table, so we brought providers of technologies, seekers of technologies, along with experts in licensing and experts in all of the different fields that you would need in order to commercialize. We also have the roster of service providers or experts, which again is a list of geographically specific, technical sector specific experts in a variety of different areas from all around the world. And we of course offer access to a variety of resources in IP management and patent information. I'll skip over all of this and let's see, this is the database. And I just want to highlight a few of the services that WIPO has that I think are underutilized. One, we have the SMEs and Entrepreneurship Support Division, which does training of trainers in setting up TTOs and IP management and negotiating licenses. We have the WIPO Academy, which offers a variety of courses which may be either free or low cost, depending on your region and your country and your institution. They also run a summer school for learning about IP. We have a variety of databases. We have Patent Scope, which is every single patent that is registered with WIPO is automatically put into Patent Scope, which is a publicly searchable free database. And 76% of the world's patents are filed with WIPO. There's the ARDI, which is Research for Innovation, which is over 20,000 journals, books, and reference works, which are available for free for 117 countries. There's the ASPI, which is access to specialized patent information, so all of the leading patent databases in the world, again, available free or of low cost to depending on the institution. We have technology and innovation support centers, which offer, which are country-based and offer specific free information on things like analyzing a market in a specific technology area and understanding what are the patents and what's the patent landscape and all of that. And we have innovator assistance program, which an innovator can go and apply for when they hit an IP question that they don't know the answer to. We have pro bono volunteer lawyers from all around the world who offer their pro bono services to provide those answers. And finally, we have a lot of publications, because that's what the United Nations does. We publish a lot of things, but a lot of very useful publications. We have case studies, we have patent landscapes depending on the sector. We also have something called the IP Panorama series, which is published by the SMEs and Entrepreneurship Support Division that I mentioned earlier, and that's a very specific set of case studies focusing in a very graphic manner and in a very easy to understand manner all of the different steps involved in going from research to commercialization of a technology, whether you're a researcher or an institution or an SME. And that is my, 10 minutes.
Thank you, Meghana. Hope all of you can utilize the WIPO resources. Lots of wealth of information there and expertise. Let's give a big hand to the panel. I'm sorry we have run out of time for questions, but the panel member will be available outside the room here if anybody would like to ask some question. I also would like to request all the panel members to stay outside. We want to take a group photo. So thank you again.